Greetings! Welcome back everybody, I'm Halfway Gaming and it's time we move on to part 2 of how to make a RimWorld time-lapse. If you haven't watched part 1 yet, well that video was all about the basics of the progress renderer mod. So in this video we are going far more in depth. Right away we can start talking about what each setting does and why it exists. Okay, so jumping back into the mod settings, we can start at the top and talk about what this does. It just enables or disables the mod. And that little tab below, that decides what kind of message comes up every time it renders an image. It's barely important, but these are the three options: pop-up, message, or none. It rendered, right? Moving on to the so-called render settings. This is just what the rendered image will or will not include. I like to have just the game conditions and weather selected, as the other things almost make it feel like it isn't a town or a base just naturally growing. Now back to these sliders. Now, the bottom slider, not being very important, represents which hours the rendering will happen. So say I set it to render once per day, currently it would always and only render at the 12th hour, or in other words 12 PM. If I change it to this, it will always render at 5 AM. So you've probably been wondering about this top slider for a while. And well, I left it so late because it's super useful. So if I want to take a few days or weeks of rendering in the current part of the map, but then decide that something over the other side of the map is more important, it will currently take 30 transition renders, giving a smooth transition over to the new render markers. Here, I made this as an example. Pretty useful, right? Well, sometimes 30 transition renders is far too many, and so this slider can fix that. It also drops to 0 if you don't want any transition renders. Moving on to the right side of the mod settings, well, it's all about the exported renders over here. Like what format? JPEG or PNG? The image quality and basically the quality again. You probably shouldn't touch this one though, it could mess up a lot of things. Okay, now this one confuses me. It specifically says that it will keep the height of the rendered image and the width will be calculated to preserve the aspect ratio. But if I try this, or this, it makes zero difference. Please, if anyone knows how I'm using this wrong, please let me know. Anyway, we all know what this one does. Ticking this and having it create subdirectories for each world basically automatically separates rendered images based on the world, so that no renders can be mixed in with one another. I actually might tick that one myself. And finally, the export image name pattern. I like to have it so it numbers each image consecutively, so I can always alphabetically sort them and they'll be in the correct order. But this other option is to name each image with the date and time, or both. So there you have it. Now you know how to make a RimWorld time-lapse and what every single setting does within the progress renderer mod. You should be able to manipulate and change these settings to produce any desired outcome. Or are you still a bit confused about some of the settings or how to use the mod properly? Well, if that's the case, then feel completely free to ask any questions in the comments. Or if you want to call with me, then my Discord is a great place to do that. Thank you all so much for watching and stay halfway.